Hi and welcome back to my channel, and in this video we're going to be talking about why I've chosen to close my original community interest company, 4Elements CIC. So in this video I'm going to review how much funding I've got over the 10 years. This will give you a guide of how much you could possibly get in grant funding with your CIC, and it gives you an idea of how CICs pan out long term. So before I jump into that, please hit the subscribe button for everything to do with community interest companies, grant funding, anything to do with being a community artist or running a social enterprise. I've also got a course called How to Start a CIC and Get Grant Funding in 4 months, which is over on my website, link in the description. So that aside, let's get into it. So 4Elements, I started it in 2012. Back then, CICs weren't known about. I was told by a colleague that I should open a community interest company and I could get lottery funding. So I went ahead and did it, and I left my job as a probation officer and started that. In the early days, I was doing a youth music and media project. So basically, I'd get in young people who were at risk of exclusion or had been excluded from school or at risk of being in the criminal justice system, or people who already were. So it's about really steering people away from crime by building up positive hobbies, getting people who are long-term unemployed some skills and some confidence, and really just giving unique opportunities. By engaging people with their interests, music and media, I was able to bring in people that were hard to reach and do really good work. And as a result of that, lots of people got into employment, changed their lives around, and there was lots of positive outcomes. So I'm going to give you a guide now of over the 10 years, how much money I actually brought in with grant funding. Now this is a good example for you because many of you will be wondering, well, how long does a CIC last for? So this gives you a 10-year guide. Now, bearing in mind that when I started out, there wasn't any advice like you've got here. So I had to just hit the ground running. I wasn't applying for loads of grants in the early days. I didn't know about a lot of them. So I was quite happy just sort of muddling along on my own. So for the whole 10 years, I got the National Lotteries Awards for All grant for £10,000 every single year. So if you're thinking, how long will they give that to you? There doesn't seem to be an exit date on it. There doesn't seem to be a date that they cut it off. I have got it every year for 10 years. There have been times in that period where it's been turned down, maybe the first time, but generally speaking, I've either got it first time or second time. Now, by year 3, I'd learned about the Arts Council. So I didn't know about it before that, so I hadn't applied. So by the time I learned about the Arts Council, I then got an Arts Council grant every year. So from 3 years onwards, I've got that every single year. In the early days, because you can put obviously how much you want to apply for, in the early days, I would only apply for around sort of 7,000-8,000, but that's because I didn't know that I could, whether I would get it, be more likely to get it if I put it in for less. I was kind of testing the water with it. So you can see when you look at my grants over the last 7 years to the Arts Council, they've kind of crept up in value as I've kind of applied for a bit more. So I started around the 7,000 and I ended up sort of working my way up to the 15. And of course now it's changed that the cap is actually 30,000. So I'd certainly advise to you that actually it doesn't matter if you're putting in less. You're not necessarily more likely to get it. I think if you've got a good strong project, you might as well just put it in for the full whack. So yes, so over the last 7 years, every year I've got the Arts Council grant. And then in year 3, I started to apply for local funding. So I started to apply for a local fund called, it was called Crime Beat at the time. That was in my area. It was something that was funded by sort of the police and sort of victim funds and stuff like that. And so I got that for several years running. I got the Crime Beat grant, and that was for £5,000. I also got another grant, which was called, also got another local grant, which they actually do nationally, but it's available in each local area, called the I Will, which is like a social action fund, it's a youth fund. So if you look at the I Will fund in your area, that's £5,000, and I got that for a couple of years as well. In 2019, I got £5,000 from the DWP to run a job club. So that's £5,000, which I had, and that was for equipment and furniture and stuff like that. But yeah, I got 5,000 off the job centre. And then over the last 4 years, I've had Children in Need funding, which is £10,000 a year every year for the last 4 years. Now they've now put that up to 15,000, so you can get it for 15, but when I was receiving it, the maximum was 10,000, and that was the core grant fund. And then this last year, I have got the Lotteries Heritage Fund, because I've been doing some heritage projects. So I got the Heritage Fund, which was £10,000. So last year was my sort of my best year when it comes to getting grant funding. I had for 4 elements, I had 45,000 in grant funding, and I also got an individual arts council for 15. So that brings me up to 60,000 in grant funding last year. Now, with low overheads, pretty much all of that came to me. I was able to pay myself most of that. So that gives you an idea of how much you can bring in, how much you can pay yourself for those different projects. So that gives you an example. The 4 elements over the last 10 years has brought in about £250,000 in funding. Now, I've also, of course, had other income coming in. I've been paid by prisons to do work. I've been paid by youth clubs to do work. So 4 elements has brought in other income as well. But in terms of grant funding, it's brought in £250,000. So with all that great work said and done, you're probably wondering, well, why close it after 10 years? So the reasons why I've chosen to close it this year is because I just feel that I'm doing other work now and I've got other projects on the go, and I feel like 4 elements served its purpose. It was a fantastic run. It's been a brilliant project. I've absolutely loved it, working with young people, working to help actually make, really positive change in people's lives. I've really loved it, and it really followed on well from my work, because I'd come from being a probation officer to doing that kind of same sort of intervention work with young people and people who are long-term unemployed or in the criminal justice system. So doing that sort of rehabilitation work just followed on from my probation work. But now I'm kind of moving on to help other people start up their CICs. This channel has taken off. I'm mentoring lots of people to get funding and start their CICs. And I just feel that 4 Elements has kind of launched that. And, you're all now benefiting from the experience that I gained from running 4 Elements for 10 years. You're now benefiting from that in these videos. And then this is now growing into something in itself. Also, my partner has started his CIC, which is going to be working with men's mental health, something that we both feel really passionate about. There's a very high suicide rate in this area and amongst our peers. So his new CIC is going to be called Creador. So I'm going to be helping my partner with that. So it's kind of nice not having a CIC of my own, but sort of helping my partner with his, and then helping all of you with yours as well, and the people that I mentor. So I feel like that's the natural progression for me, but there's no reason why you can't keep your CIC running longer, or some of you may decide to close one CIC because that's led to something in kind of a different topic and start a new one. Now, the benefit of running a CIC long term is, of course, you have got that experience, and you've built that name. So I wouldn't recommend keep changing your CIC, but certainly, if it just naturally changes over time as your career changes, then that's absolutely fine. There's nothing wrong with starting afresh. So I hope that was helpful and gave you an insight into what 4 Elements was able to achieve and what you could achieve with your CIC long term.